Good morning, everybody. My name is Lynn Shaw, and I'm one of the service managers here in the Community Access to Recovery Services. And today we are going to be reviewing Module 5 for the CCS training. This is the CCS Screening and Assessment. This training today will incorporate the Mental Health AOTA Functional Screen. We will be reviewing the state statutes 36, the Forward Health Update, the CARS CCS Policy and Procedure, and I have a sample comprehensive assessment and assessment summary. First, we're going to be reviewing the Mental Health AOTA Functional Screen. The Mental Health AOTA Functional Screen is a secure online tool that assesses functional needs to determine eligibility for 4 programs. This is a website that is on the state portal where you actually enter information that you've gathered when you've met with the consumer, and you enter it into the portal, and it will calculate eligibility for these following 4 programs. These are the 4 programs. The first is the CSP, the Community Support Program. The second is our training for today, the CCS, Comprehensive Community Services. It also determines eligibility for COP, the Community Options Program, and CRS, the Comprehensive Recovery Services. And here in Milwaukee County, we are currently using the Mental Health AOTA Functional Screen for CCS, COP, and CRS. The Mental Health and Functional Screen incorporates community living skills, crisis and symptoms, risk factors, substance use and treatment, and then diagnoses, both psychiatric, substance use, and then also physical health. When you are entering information in regards to the community living skills, some further areas that this section will cover reviews vocational, benefits management, safety, social, transportation, financial, basic nutrition, health, physical health, managing symptoms, grooming, and meds. The crises and symptoms does include hospitalizations, ER visits, any emergency detentions the person may have had, physical aggression, suicide attempts, or any connection with the criminal justice system. The risk factors include self-injurious behavior, history of trauma, abuse, and also any housing instability. The Mental Health AOTA Functional Screen is completed by a trained mental health or substance use practitioner who have met the DHS qualifications, and these qualifications are reviewed by the lead screeners for Milwaukee County. Once we do receive a request to take the course, we review to make sure that you have the correct requirements, being education level and or experience. And if you've met these levels, then you would submit to county the completed DHS Functional Screener Learning Center account registration request. Once that's completed, then you are allowed to take the course. Once you've completed the Mental Health AOTA Functional Screen course, you receive a certificate that gets sent back to the county along with this completed Functional Screen web access request. And once all of those items are done, then you can become a screener and you can begin to enter information into the portal. The Mental Health AOTA Functional Screen does have requirements. The first one is that the contact that you have with the person must be done face-to-face. This is not simply a review of records that you've obtained. This is actually you going out and meeting with the client. You must receive the informed consent from the consumer. And the reason why this is important is because this is you explaining to the consumer that you're going to be completing the screen, and then also this information that you enter into the website is going to be shared with the Department of Health and Human Services, and they sometimes will aggregate the data and collect and do reports in terms of different eligibility levels for people within a county and then also within a state. So you want to make sure that they're aware that their information is going to be shared through the state. And this is going to be done through having them sign the informed consent. The next piece is making sure that you have the consumer's signed release of information to obtain medical records. For the mental health AOTA functional screen, you need to have a verified diagnosis. And the way that you can do this is by obtaining records from the person's psychiatrist or psychologist or anybody else that is able to make a diagnosis. And then you can enter this diagnosis into the screen. The mental health AOTA functional screen is done initially when you meet with the person and then needs to be done on an annual basis. The process of completing the screen can take place in any setting. You could meet with a person in their home, you can meet with a person in a hospital, you can meet with them in a restaurant, you can meet them in your office. It's a great tool that you can use anywhere. And then also when completing the mental health AOTA functional screen, it might take multiple contacts with the consumer to complete the screen. So it's just important to know that you don't have to do it all at once. The mental health AOTA functional screen does become the basis for your CCS comprehensive assessment and also your IRP. I have in front of you a copy of the mental health AOTA functional screen for your review. And when you do look through this copy of the mental health AOTA functional screen, you'll see that it asks various questions in regards to the domains that I had listed earlier on a slide. And you would mark each item by the frequency at which the person needs help from somebody else to complete the task. If an item is marked, it is expected that this is a service that the consumer would need on the service array for CCS. So this is a great tool for you to use to start your assessment and to start the service planning with the client. And then also in your handouts, I've included for you the website for the mental health AOTA functional screen. This will provide you the instructions and then actually a paper form of the screen to show you what it looks like. And then also I have on here the mental health AOTA functional screen listserv, and I encourage everybody to sign up for this listserv as this provides you updates on the mental health AOTA functional screen from the state. Next, we're going to be going into the CCS assessment. DHS 36 defines the assessment as the process that is used to identify the strengths, needs, and desired outcomes of a consumer and to evaluate the progress towards desired outcomes. So again, when looking at this definition and thinking about the mental health AOTA functional screen, you can see where it does talk about the needs and desired outcomes of a consumer. These would be the items that you've marked that the person needs assistance to complete a task. On the CARS website, we do have the policy and procedure number 615 that is specifically for the screening and assessment. This policy provides an accurate, comprehensive assessment. The assessment should be welcoming, person-centered, trauma-informed, culturally competent, and recovery-oriented. It should also take a look at a consumer's options for treatment and allow consumers to know their psychosocial rehabilitation services provided through CCS and any other self-help programs that the consumer may be eligible for. The requirements for the CCS assessment is that it must be completed by the care coordinator within 30 days of receiving the CCS application that's signed by the consumer. In the assessment, you want to include strengths, needs, recovery goals, priorities, preferences, values, and lifestyles. What I want to stress for you about CCS and what was stressed earlier in the previous slide in regards to the client's viewpoints, the client's own words, is that the CCS assessment really puts the client into the assessment. It's not you writing about the client as we've sometimes done in the past, but this allows the consumer to speak for themselves, and oftentimes you'll see in the assessment the words of the consumer as opposed to the words of the clinician. So this second bullet point is extremely important, and you'll see this theme throughout the assessment of CCS. So it's really important to remember that when anybody is reading this assessment, it should read from the consumer's point of view, not from a care coordinator's point of view, not from a therapist's point of view, not from a psychiatrist's point of view. But this is the consumer's time, opportunity for them to hear how they are doing and what they want. This assessment, as in any assessment, is ongoing and can be updated as needed. The assessment also allows for you to take a look at the goals that the consumer has and evaluating their progress towards these goals. One way that I like to look at assessment versus treatment planning is I like to consider assessments as knowing where you're going, and then the treatment planning as how you're going to get there. The CCS assessment incorporates the consumer's unique perspective in their own words. This is what I was referring to you before. I think this is the beauty part of the assessment. It really gets to the core of the person. Anybody reading this assessment will really understand where the client has been and where they want to go. The consumer's view of their own recovery, experiences, challenges, strengths, resources, and needs should also be included. On this list are all of the domains that need to be included in the assessment, and I just wanted to point out a few of these. And in fact, the very first one is life satisfaction. And I think this is really important, and I like even how this is listed first in the domain section. I mean, how often are we able to ask somebody how satisfied they are with their life, and what does that mean to a person? I think this is great. This is the consumer's opportunity to tell you what's going right, what's not going right, what do they want to have assistance with to make their life go right. The social network and family involvement domain, that would include how a person's family or social network support the consumer in their recovery. And anytime that person's viewpoint is included in the assessment, you want to make sure that that consumer has written permission for the inclusion of an adult's interpretation of what's going on for them. In addition to the social network and family involvement, this could also include cultural and environmental supports. Under mental health, you want to make sure that you focus on any past treatment that the consumer may have received, where this occurred, the length of the treatment, who provided the treatment, and then the course of the treatment. We're just going to take a closer look at the substance use. As you know, there's both a substance use professional and the mental health professional, and this is a particular point in CCS where it's really important, if there is a substance use, that you are utilizing your substance use professional. So if there is a substance use professional must diagnose the substance use disorder and provide an assessment of the consumer's substance use, strengths, and treatment needs. In DHS 36, there is a component of the assessment in the event that you needed to complete an abbreviated assessment, because as you can see in this previous slides here, this is a long list of items that you would need to obtain when meeting with a consumer. And sometimes consumers are unable to sit through an entire interview or may not want to complete all of these at intake. So it's important to know that there is a point where you can do an abbreviated assessment, and under these conditions, that the signed CCS admission agreement is received and one of the following must be met. The consumer's health or symptoms are such that only limited information can be obtained immediately. The consumer chooses not to provide information, or the consumer is immediately interested in receiving only specified services. The last point would be is, let's say somebody is homeless and you've received their packet of information, you have the signed CCS admission agreement, and this person is interested in receiving My Home benefits, and you can get an appointment to meet with somebody from My Home to complete the application, but you have all these items that you have to get through in order to do that. This abbreviated assessment allows you to meet just the areas that are needed to make sure that you can get to that appointment with the My Home person. So this allows you to work with that person to alleviate their homelessness and work with them with My Home, and you can use this abbreviated assessment. The abbreviated assessment, complete as many domains as you can. The assessment is only valid for 3 months from the date of the signed CCS application. And when you are completing the CCS assessment, you must specify the reason for completing the assessment. Now, prior to the expiration of the 3 months, you must complete the entire comprehensive assessment. And if that's not completed, you would need to consider working with a person to determine if the CCS benefits are appropriate. Because in order to continue receiving CCS benefits past this 3 months, if the abbreviated assessment is completed, that is required for the services to be continued. So once the assessment is done, there is a CCS assessment summary, and this is a really great component of the CCS assessment because this assessment summary can be conducted or completed by anybody on the recovery team. It does not need to be done by the care coordinator. So this is actually a great time where your recovery team would come together and review the items in the assessment summary, and it can be authored by anybody on the recovery team. So the CCS assessment summary includes all of the documented assessment with all the domains that I've listed earlier. And you also want to include the time frame that the assessment was completed, including any dates of any interviews. You want to document what information was used. This could be hospital discharge summaries, meetings that you've had with the consumer, meetings that you've had with the consumer and the recovery team, meetings with the consumer and their support system. In the assessment summary, you will also have the consumer's desired outcomes and measurable goals, the names of the persons who participated in the assessment process and their relationship to the consumer. And this is a really interesting bullet point, is this assessment summary does allow for any differences of opinions among recovery team members which have not been resolved in any of the recovery team meetings or any meetings with the consumer. So this is an opportunity for the recovery team to discuss any differences of opinions in regards to the consumer. And then you would end the assessment summary with signatures of all the persons that were present at the meetings. So I've included for you a copy of the CARS Comprehensive Assessment, and I will allow you to look through that on your own time to review a sample of the CARS Comprehensive Assessment. And then there is also a copy of the CCS Assessment Summary for your review, and you will see that in these items, all of the items and the domains that I discussed for the CCS assessment and the assessment summary are included in these two documents. So at this time, I would like to thank you, and this concludes the Module 5 for the CCS Assessment and Screening.